The screaming started at exactly 2:37 p.m. on a Saturday, one of those shrill, blood-curdling screams that doesn't just echo, it reverberates through your soul, you know what I mean? I stood at my kitchen window, mug in hand, half expecting to see a dogfight or maybe some kid who'd wiped out on their bike, but what I saw was so much better. From the next yard over, a geyser of thick brown sludge shot straight up out of the pristine sprinkler system, coating everything in its path. At first glance, it looked like some kind of Willy Wonka fountain, but trust me, the smell was pure barnyard hell. Karen Peaton, our HOA queen, the self-declared czar of Oak Ridge Estates, stood there frozen, her perfect white sundress getting Jackson Pollocked by a tsunami of liquefied cow crap. Her little garden party went from Pinterest to Fear Factor in about 3 seconds flat, guests in their Sunday best running for cover, shrieking, slipping, leaving brown footprints across her brick walk. I know what you're thinking. How the hell did things end up like this? Hang tight, let me back up a sec. My name's Jake Morrison, and about 6 months back I made what I thought was the best decision of my life. After years of living in paper-thin apartments, listening to neighbors fight through the walls, and never seeing real grass, I finally scraped together enough for a 5-acre plot on the edge of Oak Ridge Estates, a semi-suburban sprawl with just enough country to let you pretend you're independent, but close enough to the city that you get pizza delivered in under 30 minutes. The place came with a private, my own water, nobody else's business, which as it turned out was worth its weight in gold. My first week was bliss. No rules, no streetlights, just the soft cluck of chickens and a little composting project I'd started on the side. I was living that self-sufficient dream, even turning cattle waste into liquid fertilizer for my crops. And then cue the bad omen, Karen Peaton showed up at my door. She had this air about her, like every breath was a favor to the world, clipboard clutched to her chest like a riot shield. She smiled a politician's smile and launched into a TED talk about community standards, proper grass height, parking regulations, monthly dues for amenities I'd never use. I listened politely, then told her as gently as I could that my property predated Oak Ridge Estates, and according to my deed, I was not part of the HOA. That smile disappeared faster than free beer at a tailgate. She pressed on hard. Tried to sell me on voluntary membership, all the perks, all the friendlier neighbors I'd make. I kept saying no. Her voice turned cold, her posture stiff, and she told me point blank she'd be watching to make sure my land didn't bring down the neighborhood. Then she stomped off, heels cracking against my driveway like gunfire. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but of course not. Anonymous complaints started rolling in about my chickens, perfectly legal, my wildflower meadow, apparently an eyesore, my old work truck, which I parked out of sight, but not enough for her. I ignored her at first, chalked it up to HOA pettiness, but then things got weird. My water pressure started acting up. Some mornings I couldn't get enough flow to fill a glass. I checked my well, the pump, all my pipes, nothing obvious. I thought maybe the equipment was aging out, but then after one particularly dry week, I got suspicious. So I spent a Saturday tracing the water line from the well toward my house. And about 50 feet from the pump, I found it someone had dug down and tapped into my main water line. Not just any someone, the off-brand plumbing was obvious, the line snaking straight toward Karen's McMansion next door. There was even a shutoff valve conveniently located right on her side of the fence. My blood boiled, I'm not going to lie. Here was the same woman who preached about rules and community values, and she was literally stealing water out from under me. I could have called the cops right there. She'd have been booked for theft and vandalism. But you know what? I had a better idea. See, I'm a big believer in poetic justice. Karen wanted my water. She was going to get it, just not the kind she was expecting. Over the next week, I installed a simple bypass that let me decide which tank fed the illegal line. Then I hooked it up to my cattle waste processor, the one full of liquefied manure thick enough to clog a city sewer. All I had to do was flip a valve, and suddenly Karen's lush lawn would get a taste of real country living. I waited for the perfect moment. Karen was all over Facebook bragging about her greenest grass in Oak Ridge and inviting half the zip code to her Saturday garden party. On Friday night, I switched the valve. The next afternoon, I set up a camera with a clear shot of her backyard, then waited. At exactly 2:30 p.m., her sprinklers kicked on, and for a split second, everything looked normal, just good old H2O spraying over her roses. Then the pipes burped and all hell broke loose. Thick brown sludge sprayed everywhere, soaking the grass, the flowers, and most satisfyingly, Karen's perfectly white dress. The smell hit first like someone set off a manure bomb. One of her guests took a direct hit and screamed. A guy in designer pants tried to sprint away only to slip and faceplant in the mess. Karen stood paralyzed, her jaw hanging open, dress and hair dripping with fertilizer. It looked like a scene out of a disaster movie. Mud wrestling meets HOA drama. By the time the sprinklers finally sputtered off, the party looked like a livestock accident site. I couldn't stop smiling as I saved the footage. Always keep receipts, right? 40 minutes later, Karen came storming up my driveway, hair-streaked brown shoes squishing with every step. She banged on my door like the SWAT team. I opened up, put on my best shocked neighbor face, and let her rant. 5 minutes of wild accusations about sabotage lawsuits and criminal charges. When she finally stopped for air, I showed her the video of the illegal tap, clear as day. Her face went from purple to sheet white. Then I calmly showed her my logs, pressure drops photos, the timeline. And just to twist the knife, I showed her the video of her own sprinklers spraying liquefied manure across her guests. That's when the real panic set in. I explained as gently as I could that theft of utilities is a felony, one with big fines and even jail time. She'd also damaged my property, trespassed, violated a whole mess of city ordinances, and committed fraud by stealing water during a drought. I gave her 2 choices: call the cops right then or start making this right fast. She tried everything, bargaining, threats, even tears. Sorry, Karen, not this time. I reported her to the water authority, and the police filed every bit of paperwork and called my lawyer while she listened on speaker. The water authority confirmed the tap and calculated she'd stolen over 12,000 gallons in 6 months, which during a drought is a major crime. She got hit with a $18,000 fine and had to pay for a full investigation of the whole neighborhood. The cops pressed charges for theft, destruction of property, and trespassing. Her handyman even got dragged in. Security footage showed him digging the trench, and she'd paid him by check, which, I mean, come on. Then came the civil suit. My lawyer argued for damages to my well-lost water repair costs. By the end, we were looking at $35,000. But honestly, that wasn't even the best part. Word of Karen's stunt spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd bullied. People came out of the woodwork with stories of fake fines, rulebook harassment, threats over nothing. The next HOA meeting was a circus. I didn't go, but the stories trickled back standing room. Only neighbors screaming for Karen's resignation, demanding an audit. She tried to blame me for everything, but nobody bought it. The vote was unanimous. She was booted from the board, barred from ever holding an HOA position again, and the audit turned up years of shady spending. She'd been charging the association for water she was stealing from me, billing them for her private landscaping, the whole 9 yards. By the time her day in court rolled around, even her own lawyer looked tired of her. She got probation for the theft, had to pay back the HOA due 200 hours of community service, ironically with a water conservation group. You should have seen her face when the judge read that part. Poetic right. Her husband stood beside her, stone-faced, like he was wondering when exactly his life turned into a made-for-TV train wreck. So yeah, that's how the Queen of Oak Ridge Estates lost her throne, brought down not by lawyers or angry neighbors, but by her own greed and a well-timed blast of country justice. I wish I could say the neighborhood's been peaceful ever since, but, well, you know how suburbia is. Some folks never really learn, and I've got a feeling Karen won't stay quiet for long. What do you think, was that justice? Or did I go too far? Ever dealt with an HOA tyrant? Or had to get creative with a neighbor who didn't respect boundaries? Drop your stories and let's see where folks stand on this kind of payback, because honestly, I think there's a little bit of Jake Morrison in all of us.